Hey guys, Dave here, and welcome back to another ad-free episode of FFBE War of the Visions. In today's episode, I'm going to show you why I think Rain is the best, if not one of the best, units for all slash-type raids. Now you can see here in the picture, I was doing major damage. I was only at 147, but we did do it on a 150 and had the same results. Now the only problem we ran into with this raid was we kept getting slept because it was made for Venera only. It was a sneaky, greedy move by Gumi. Basically, up yours if you don't spend a lot of money for the newest unit for the raid, which is totally BS in my opinion. But we did Rain and it did work out really well. I'm going to explain why it worked out well, why it's going to work out very well in future raids, and I'm going to go over all the mechanics and explain why and how it works. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look. Alright, so before I do anything else, I'm going to do a little Mythbuster episode here. So damage type verification. Now it's kind of tricky in how things work, especially with units like Rain, Freva, whatever. Gilgamesh, Ramza, Miranda, those type units, they're kind of like hybrids. They pull from the magic, they pull from the attack, they pull from both. Which weapon should I equip? It's kind of confusing. But if you go on sites like the WOTV calculator site, or you just go in the skill tree and look at it, you will see that Rain's Soul Prominence attack, which is the 3-hitter that you're going to be using to chain, that or the limit break, that it pulls from his magical stat. So the damage is coming from the magical stat, but it's not a magic attack, it's a physical attack. And you can see that because it has the red sword icon. The red sword icon indicates that it is a fire slash attack. So even though he's mainly a magical unit and he's pulling from the magical stat, it is a fire slash attack, and therefore faith doesn't matter, the enemy magic stat doesn't matter, the enemy spirit doesn't matter. It's going off the enemy defense. It's going off your magic stat for damage. That's why the Trocier Vision card is not effective for Rain, because that adds magical attack, whereas it's not a magical attack for Soul Prominence. Other attacks, you'll get the bonus, like for his Fairaga, but for like the raid, Soul Prominence, you would want Ramu, because that's going to boost his magical stat, and that's where the damage comes from. Now, explain the verification I did here. The first one I did was no vision card on Frevia, but she had both magical resistances, 12% each on her. And the damage result was 4171 for damage. Yeah, I said damage twice. Then I put the Iron Giant vision card on Frevia, and I got 3575. So by putting slash resistance up, I'm reducing the damage right there. Then on the first one on the left, I dropped one magic resistance passive, dropping her magic resistance 12%, and I got the same result as with both of them on. And what does that do? That proves that his attack is not a magical attack in any way, even though it's pulling from the magical stat. And the result on the right proves that it's a slash attack, because the damage dropped by adding 15% slash resistance. So when you're gearing out Rain for this type of build for raids and whatnot, or if you just want to know how these attacks work, look at what stat they're pulling from, and then look at the circle icon that'll tell you what type of attack it is. Now, if it's like the water drop for the or the fireball for the magical, and then the color will indicate the element, then you know it's going to be a magical attack. And then the icon on the left, whether it's a staff, that'll pull from the magical stat, the sword thing pulls from the physical one, and then Gilgamesh has a couple that pull from both. So, I mean, just understand how the different attacks work, where they're pulling their points from. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of myths and rumors around that, so I just wanted to clear that up. All right, so let's take a look here at why Rain is so powerful, more so than other units. First of all, his limit break reduces fire resistance. As you can see, max level, you can drop it up to 38%. That's 38% more damage. Okay, what other unit has that? Venera had what, 20% defense break? Okay, that's an extra 18% right there. Bam. Okay, then you fire off Undermine and you break the boss. Not only will they do less damage if they're it's one where you can't steal time or whatever, but you're going to be able to decrease all their things. So there's an additional 20% defense down. So right there, you're looking at plus 68% damage. Okay, so for the coming up Death Machine and stuff like that, even for the Final Fantasy XIV raid, we'll take a look at all of them in a minute, but he can actually do more damage than the units that are designed for that raid, because he's designed for every raid because he's overpowered. Okay, then step 3 is you're going to spam either Soul Prominence or your Limit Break. It depends on the amount of the chain and the amount of points that you've put into your Limit Break. Whichever one is going to do more damage. My Limit Break in the video that I was unable to post, well, actually I didn't record it, I was doing more damage than, I think I did almost 20k with my Limit Break, which is absolutely ridiculous. And Rain was, gimped in a lot of ways on this last boss. So the Soul Prominence, you definitely want to get that all the way up, and you want to get the green passive that boosts the damage on that, because that's going to be your bread and butter. Like a lot of other units like Ramza, Shadow Lynx, they have a 3 chaining ability, but its damage sucks. Rain's 3 chaining ability, not only is it 3 in a row, but it does a lot of damage. So yeah, it's really strong. And now what we talked about here, you can see the staff on it. So that means it pulls from magical, and then the red slash sword, which is a fire slash attack. All right, so let's talk real quick about how to equip him. Now, since most of the attacks, actually all the attacks that we're going to be using are magical based, you're probably going to want to use Shiva or Ramu. Now, since they both give you the same bonus, pretty much, Ramu a couple more magic points, but Shiva a couple more agility points. So I would say Shiva is probably slightly better since agility is so important. However, depending on the raid, for example, anything that's a dark unit, the double-headed dragon might be better because it's going to give you 25% light killer and 15% slash, so that's 40% raw damage, and in the end that's going to equal more damage than you're going to get off the magical stat from Ramu or Shiva, because the magical attack bonus from those two does not help at all. Just the magical stat and the magical stat percent. But units like espers like the Double Dragon will be slightly less agility than Shiva. Now moving down to vision cards, you could use the flavor of the month for that raid, for example like the Dark Killer or the Aquatic Killer, but the Scion card to boost your agility, the Echoing Screams to boost his slash attacks, Ramu to boost his raw magical stat by percentage, and then Lamia Queen to boost his fire attack are going to be the 4 main ones. So if you have these, then you'll be good. Now the reason you don't really need the double-headed dragon is all of his abilities are chaining abilities, and they're not per se like Stern where they're just going to hit max damage right away. So you could use it, and if you had a perfect chain or you'd steal time like the last few attacks, yeah, maybe you'll go over it, but I don't think it's going to be too viable. I think these 4 are going to be key. As for weapons, we already got his best one from the tower. Don't worry if you didn't get it this time, it'll come in the next tower after the raids are already over, LOL. Aziz's bells, while I said you don't absolutely need them 100%, it's true that you don't, but they're still the best in my opinion. Another reason is because they have 7 agility on them. And then the last slot, anything you can put in there that's going to give you crit in that accessory slot or armor slot. I have the Alexandrite ring that gives you 15 critical. That's going to help you get more damage on his attacks. So I think there might be new armor that comes out later, new vision cards that might be slightly better, but as of now I think this is pretty much the best setup you can go with. All right, so these are the raids I think Rain will be viable in. Now, I put Faith up there, but after writing that, I realized that, because I was kind of still under the impression that Faith would play a part in it, but I don't think it does at all, because we just proved that it's a physical / fire elemental attack that only pulls from the magical stat. So Faith should have no impact whatsoever. So with Death Machine, he's got a minus 20%, and we can break him up to 38% more fire resistance and drop his defense. So therefore, we have probably at 38% advantage over Ramza, and our regular ability, our damaging ability, is also our chaining ability. So I think Rain is absolutely going to blow Ramza and any other unit out of the water. And one thing I will mention in the video that I didn't mention on the previous slide is that Rain also has speed break. So if you're like, oh, well, you need Rob, and no, you don't need Rob. Rain can do that too. He can do everything. He's awesome. That's why I said he's the best. Okay. All right. Next, we'll take a look at the Final Fantasy 14 raid one. This one is 30 fire resistance, and it has only minus 10 slash. However, the units that are designed for this, which would be Thancred and Dark units, this boss only has minus 10% resistances to them. So if you use Rain's Limit Break, you're only 2% higher than them, but you still have all of his other breaks. So I think Rain is going to be just as viable. It's only a 2% damage difference for that. So I think he's going to be awesome for that. And that raid, it only went up to level 80 as well, so it's not a super hard raid. Now Ifrit, this one, he does have the Faith at 100. That's because the makers were intending the new Irudia Mathematician unit to be the go-to unit for that raid. However, you could drop his fire resistance, and Rain was absolutely insane on him. So Rain works for that. Now the Toneberry, he's got minus 10 slash resistance there, fire resistance 0. Hey, what does that mean? Yeah, that means Rain is going to be absolutely killer on that too. Now it was minus 10% frost resistance, or ice, whatever you want to call it, for Laswell. But you can do more than that with Rain. So, yeah. So I hope Gumi doesn't catch on to this, because they might redesign the raids, because Rain is just so powerful. So basically, any slash favored raids that come out in the future that don't have ridiculous amounts of fire resist, I think Rain is going to pretty much trump most units on them. You'll have to see what happens. Gumi could change some things up. Like they were very sneaky and greedy with the white marshmallow one, and I think they made a lot of players quit, which is ultimately really bad. It's going to affect us all in the long run. If you weren't in a Venera in most 150 groups, you'd instantly be kicked, and a lot of free-to-play players or people who don't spend as much, they're only going to put up with that so long. You get kicked out of 50, 100, 150 matches. It's just going to demoralize you, and you're going to be like, why am I even playing this game? It's not fun. So they really need to change that. In my opinion, maybe like the beginning of the month unit should be the raid unit, and they should announce that a month in advance. So either the unit comes out and then the raid comes out a month later, and they tell you that this is going to be the raid unit, or they give you news a month in advance that the raid is going to come out and that's going to be the unit, so people can save up for that if you're free to play or you don't spend as much money. Because the way that they do it right now is it's all about greed, and players aren't stupid. We catch on to that stuff, and it's only going to hurt them and everyone who plays the game in the long run. Because even if you're a whale and you have everything, if you don't know other players to group up with, it's all pointless. All right, so here's the team that we used. We took in Aziza. They had the bells, they were 99, and they had a decently high slash card. So those are the cards that we used. With what we had, those were best. for this raid. Now let's jump in and look at all the mistakes we made. I mean, yeah, no, we this raid, again, with the greedy sleep mechanics and stuff, and getting hit by that if you weren't Venera, whereas you'd be ignored. It was completely BS. But we did our best to try to work around that. And by the time we all figured out the pattern, we wanted to keep pushing ranking, and we gave up on doing more attempts to try to one-shot it. But I think our best attempt was getting a 150 down to like 20% or something like that, which isn't bad at all. Like, even with 3 Veneras and our Gafgarian areas that we were using for some of our videos, some of our worst attempts were about at that. So a unit that's completely unoptimized for this raid, with like the sleep and whatnot, we were able to do that. So I think that's pretty impressive, especially since the odds were stacked against rain. Now, the mistake that we made here is you saw Alibaba go in and do the AP break the first turn. So what he should have done in our correct attempts was do the speed break the first turn and then bells, or just do the bells and then speed break after that. So that kind of sucked, because later on he would run out of AP and just couldn't finish the chain or LB to get that max damage later in the raid. And that was probably about a 20k damage loss right there, because Rain can get up higher on his chains, and he was doing a lot more damage than Venera was, even being at a 20% elemental / attack type disadvantage as compared to her. But one thing to note about Rain is he is like a red mage type, so he will start out with about 50% of his AP pool to begin with. So putting the bells on him is great, but he can probably still manage without the bells decently. Like you can see in this first attempt here, Alibaba didn't pop the bells until the end. I don't know why at the end, but he was able to get down to like turn 5 without even having to use the bells. But if you use them, you don't have to worry. You can keep chaining the whole fight. So I still think the bells are best to have on there. So depending on the bosses in the future, you're going to have to switch up, what Rain is doing what, and you're going to have to coordinate, because one of the Rains is going to have to be a knight if you're going to do it for the Warrior of Light Death Machine raid. Because I haven't seen any proof in pictures, because there's no picture that says you can't steal time. He's slowable, but supposedly you can't steal time. Now, I didn't do it, so I don't know. I wish they would put a status icon for that. So assuming that you can't steal time on him, you'll need 1 Rain in Night with a max speed break to drop his speed with that. Now, some other units might have a slightly better speed break than Rain, but I think it's good enough. So you can have 4 Rains in there, and we only had 3 here. Okay, so if you have 4 and you break it, let him take his first turn while you pop your bells, then you just do speed break, you do his 1 limit break, and then you do undermine to drop his resistances, and then you just spam soul prominence again and again and again. I mean, look at this damage now. I mean, we're not even up that far in the chain, and we're doing as much as was Venera's limit break. So, Rain was doing absolutely insane damage, a lot more than I thought, which was really awesome. So, yeah, if you don't have Rain, when he comes back around the 6-month anniversary on the Laswell banner, or if you get him in between, work on him. Start buying his shards in the shop now on fire days. Anytime it's in the Whimsy shop or whatever, start buying the shards. Do everything you can to try to get him up if you want to focus in on raids and whatnot. Now keep in mind, Rain is also very powerful in arena and guild battle, because you can get him up to 100% magic damage cut. between his spirit and magical resistances. So he's very, very powerful. And he's definitely a good unit to take up. Alright, so hopefully this gives everyone insight as to why Rain is such a strong unit. We didn't get an actual one-shot, but we got pretty darn close to it, even with the greedy sleep mechanics there, where we had to gamble on the first boss turn and halfway through the fight when the two mobs came up and whatnot. If it weren't for that, I'd say, yeah, he definitely would have gone down, even though the odds were stacked against him. Now, in the future raids, the Death Machine, he's probably going to be better than Ramza from my calculations. In Ifrit, he's definitely going to be one of the best, if not the best. I think he's going to be better than the water units because he can chain and do damage and break and do everything because he's awesome. And then the Final Fantasy XIV and the Toneberry, I think he's going to be the star of those as well. Now, of course, those units like Laswell and Thancred and Dark units will be good in those too, of course. But not everybody has the Vizio or the money to get all of the latest units. So this is giving, free-to-play players a chance to choose a unit that's going to be good for a lot of future content. Like if you have one unit to choose that's going to benefit you the most across the board, I would say it's going to be either Rain or Ziza, like for the bells, if you're going to focus on raids and stuff like that. But Rain is probably your top priority over any other unit in the game because he's strong in every situation and he's really good for raids and whatnot. And once people start catching on to this meta, then you're going to stop getting kicked, even if you're free to play, and everybody is going to enjoy the game more. So, that's my goal for this video. It's to just get the knowledge out there and then give you guys a heads up on the upcoming content. So again, I hope this is very helpful. I'm sure there's going to be some people who maybe are still skeptical about it, and people, maybe I didn't give you all of the information you needed to clarify it for you. So if there's anything I can do, I'll be more than happy to answer questions below. As always, our Discord server is open invite. During the past raid, we had a lot of people join in there. We had, like 2-3 active groups going most of the time at night from people all around the world. We had a really good time just screwing around together, making jokes. We had a lot of, like people helping each other out with content, like what should I do here, what should I do there. It's a very helpful community. It's a lot more active than the official one, that's for sure. So if you're interested in any of that, I'd be more than happy to have you, and I'm sure everyone else would. We would just have 2 rules: no trolling and no toxicity in there. So I hope to see you on another episode of FFBE War of the Visions, and I hope to see you in Discord, especially voice chat. So take care.